13 years ago, I was $80,000 in debt. I was living in the back of a van in downtown Oakland, and I had zero clue what to do with my life. I had no marketable skills up to that point. I'd been a semi-professional rock climber, working in a climbing gym, climbing on rocks. It was great, but it wasn't making a lot of money, hence all the debt and the van life. And I got really lucky. This guy came into my life at the right moment, and he would mentor me in this new domain of existence that I had never even considered before, and that is the world of entrepreneurship. Before that, I'd just been following the path society sets for you. It says you go to school, you get a degree, you work your way up into the corporate world, right? And you get your pension at some point when you retire. And that did not work out for me. So I was really lucky that I met this guy because he took me by the hands and he showed me everything that he knew about building businesses. And I want to do that for you today. Depending on where you are, this is going to be most useful if you probably already have a business, honestly. This isn't going to be great to help you go from zero to, say, your first 10K per month. But this is going to be potentially the most valuable video that you've ever watched if you're currently doing $10,000 to $100,000 a month in your business and you would like to be doing 10 times that. These 9 frameworks that I'm going to walk you through are frameworks that I currently charge my own students $10,000 a year to learn. And I'm going to give it to you here for free because what I believe is that entrepreneurs are world changers. I believe that you go out into the world and you deliver a product or a service that makes people's lives genuinely better. You are an instrument for making the universe a better place. And I think that's amazing. I think more people, if they knew these frameworks, would be able to go out and build big, incredible, awesome businesses that make the world an even more incredible place to live. I want that. Now, this is going to be a long video. There's no way that I can break down these 9 frameworks in like 5 minutes. If you can't sit and watch for the next hour, 2 hours, I don't know how long we're going to go here, but if you can't sit and dedicate that time to learning these frameworks, you're never going to make it. You're going to fail in the game of business because business is all about being able to curb your shiny object instincts that want to take you off on a tangent, that wants you to be distracted. Your ability to sit, to focus, and then to implement is going to be decisive. It's going to be a decisive advantage. So, real quickly, if you don't actually know who I am, I'm Anthony Vicino, by the way. Over the last 13 years since I met my mentor and he introduced me to the world of entrepreneurship, we've built a 7-figure window washing business, multiple 7-figure gyms, a manufacturing company, a $100 million real estate private equity fund before it came crashing down, but that's a different story for a different day. Then I've also published 13 best-selling books. So I've been around the circuit a few times, and I want to share with you guys some of the things that have been the most impactful for me. So let's dive in. The first framework I want to introduce you to is this idea of the manifestation machine. Now, this is not actually a business framework, but this is starting on maybe the most important part of the machine of business, which is you, the entrepreneur, the founder, because the truth is you are the business. Up to about $50 million a year, you as the founder, you as the CEO, the owner of the thing, you are the thing that people are coming to do business with. You don't have a big enough brand name. Like, sure, you don't care who's running Nike anymore. You don't care about who's really running Apple. You're gonna go buy those brands. But for most businesses that are doing sub $50 million a year, it's still revolving around you as the entrepreneur. And you are the constraint within that system. The business is never gonna grow beyond your capacity as the founder, and that's why they call it a bottleneck, right? The bottleneck is at the top of the bottle, and it dictates how much can flow through to everything else. And so if you want to grow a business from, say, 10K a month to 100K or 100K a month to $1 million a month, you need to work on you first, and that starts with the manifestation machine. Now, this is the secret to getting pretty much anything that you want in life, is understanding these 4 quadrants. First quadrant is you need to have clarity. I have terrible handwriting. So if you can't read that, I'm sorry. So step 1, you got to get clear. You have to get crystal clear about what it is that you want to accomplish. That is, you need to have a target, a goal, whatever you want to call it. But most people surprisingly don't have a target. They don't have a clear vision for what they want in their business or in their life. And therefore, they're doing a lot of actions, but those actions aren't necessarily in alignment with where it is that they're trying to go. And if you are building something without clarity about what ultimately you want to accomplish, then you will be surprised at some point to look up in your life and realize you have built something that you hate. You have manifested dreams that you didn't actually want. And the clearest vision of this is for people who are going to school, they're going the college route, they're going to the corporate America route. They're living the dream that others have given to them, but they're not clear about what it is that they want to accomplish. Because if they were clear, they would realize very early in life that that path will never get them to where they want to go. And this is critical as a founder. How you build your business now, the foundations, is going to dictate what kind of business that you have later on. And so if you're not clear right now about the target you're trying to hit, don't be surprised to look up someday and realize you hit the wrong target, or you hit a target that you didn't want to hit in the first place, right? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And so clarity is step one. The ability to have a crystal clear vision is paramount. And the more clearly you can see that vision, the more likely you are to hit it. So that's step one, clarity. Step two is you need to have conviction. Conviction, AKA you need to have belief. You need to believe that the thing is possible. The reality is this, is that your beliefs in life limit you far more than reality. Whether you have limiting beliefs or you have empowering beliefs, it doesn't really matter, but your reality is the result of the beliefs that you hold with the highest amount of conviction. So if you believe that $100,000 is a lot of money and that is going to be difficult for you to make that kind of money and that it is going to require you to sacrifice your friends, your family, and all of the hobbies that you have in your life, if you believe that for you to make $100,000 means it has to come out of somebody else's pocket because the pie is only so big, then that's going to become your reality. It's going to become limited by the beliefs that you hold. Then again, if you believe that making $100,000 a month in your business is very easy, if you believe that everybody can get wealthy, if you believe that you can do that while working within the constraints that allow you still to live life on your terms, then that's going to become your reality. But you have to believe whatever it is with 100% conviction. You got to be careful, because if it's a limiting belief, that is going to become a reality. So step two, after we have clarity about what it is that we are trying to achieve, you need to hold with absolute conviction that you can accomplish that. Step three, once you have clarity, once you have conviction, now we need commitment. Commitment. AKA, you gotta focus. Because commitment, focus is nothing more than commitment, right? If you think about it, focus is kind of an act of bravery. If you were out in the wilderness and you zeroed in and you focused on your knitting, your basket weaving, then you're opening yourself up to being eaten by prey, right? So focus is a way of shutting off your mind to everything extraneous outside of the thing that's within your focus point. Very dangerous if you're out in the wilderness and you're a Neanderthal, right? But these days, you're not really running up against any existential threats on a day-to-day basis. Focus, therefore, is more of a problem that you're going to have this fear of missing out, right? Fear of missed opportunities. And I think that's why most of us struggle, is because you have a target in mind and you have the belief that you can do it, but you're not fully committed because you're not quite sure yet. Maybe there's something else and you're hedging your bets. And this is why you have a lot of entrepreneurs who are doing like $10,000 a month in 3 different businesses rather than just one business doing $100,000 a month. It's that fear of missing out. They don't have the ability to commit, to focus. But I'm telling you, the quickest way to get to your goal, to build a big, awesome, kick-ass business, is to commit. It's to actually focus in on that thing. Now, assuming that you have clarity, assuming that you have conviction, assuming that you have commitment, the fourth and final part of the manifestation machine is that you need consistency. Consistency, AKA action. Now, I think it's really popular in entrepreneurship, guru, hustle porn culture world to talk about massive action. Oh, you gotta go take massive action. And this sets people up, I think, for failure. It's very easy to take massive action when you have a high degree of motivation, especially in the beginning when the idea is still fresh, right? It's so easy to commit to a new path in the beginning when you first have the idea, because you're like, hells yeah, this can't go wrong, right? You don't yet know all the things about that idea, what make it hard, how it's going to take longer than you think. And so it's easy to attack in the beginning with intensity. But the reality is that the people who win and build the most successful businesses, it's not about the intensity of their actions, it's about the consistency. They show up every single day and they do the boring work. And they do that through discipline, because discipline beats motivation every single day. And that is why the most successful entrepreneurs, you'll notice, have a high degree of discipline. They don't sit around waiting for motivation. They are not victims or prisoners to their motivation. They show up every single day. And they know that it's not necessarily about doing 20 hours a week of work every day for the next 2 weeks. They know it's about showing up every single day, doing the boring work that nobody's going to come in and give you an attaboy. They're not going to slap you on the back and say, good job, well done. Like, it's the boring stuff that happens behind the scenes consistently that makes the whole thing work. So that's framework number one, the manifestation machine. Clarity, conviction, commitment, consistency. You lock those 4 things in and you think about them every single day. You have a process for refining and executing that process every day. It's just a matter of time till you manifest your dreams. So let's talk about the second framework. Now we're going to get into the weeds of business. So the magical customer journey. Your business exists to deliver value to another human. If you think about that, it seems really obvious. But I remember for myself, it was pretty late in my entrepreneurial career that I started to realize that business only exists in the context of another person, right? If there's not another person, there's nothing to sell to. Your product or service has no value, right? Bears don't have a system of commerce. And so every business exists to deliver value to another human being. And so if you want to be successful and you want to transact with those other human beings, you give them value in your service or product in exchange for money, you need to understand the magical customer journey. So let's break this down. First is we need to make people aware that you exist. Step one, awareness, right? You can't save souls in an empty church. If nobody knows you exist, if nobody knows that you have the cure to cancer, you cannot help them. So we need to make them aware that you are a human being out there in the world, that you have something that can make their life better. So awareness, we do that through marketing. Once people are aware of us, they move up the circle to consideration. Consideration. Here, I just discovered you exist. Huzzah. Now, I'm starting to think about your product, your service. I'm starting to think maybe that's somebody that I want to do business with, right? These typically happen relatively, there's usually a lag of time between when somebody becomes aware that you exist and when they start considering doing business with you. This is why in marketing, we always talk about how there's like that old, I think it's been debunked. And honestly, it doesn't even matter if it's true or debunked. There's no way of really measuring it. But in marketing circles, they always say that you have to have 7 touches with people. They have to have 7 exposures to your brand, to your product, before somebody even becomes aware of you, right? I don't know if that's true. I think my gut tells me it's probably a lot more than 7. But it's not even about the product or the service or the awareness of the customer. It's really with anything in life. When you're talking about your employees and trying to transmit a meaningful idea about the values or the new initiative that you guys are going to be running towards, you have to repeat yourself so many times. I think it's just a truth of human nature, is that like we're really slow to learn, slow to hear. But either way, there's usually a pretty good lag between when somebody's aware of the thing and when they start considering the thing. Next is, once they've considered it, now we move into conversion. Conversion. So up to here, we've been marketing. That is the process of making known, right? People becoming aware that you exist. Up here, now we're moving into sales, right? Conversion is all about how do I get somebody to not just consider my product, but actually give me money for it and say, I want that. Give me the thing, right? This is, I would say, where 90% of businesses struggle to grow, is either they're struggling to get leads or they're struggling to convert those leads. If that sounds like you, then you're going to want to stick around, because when we get to where we're going to get to funnel vision, the 7-figure sales script, that's going to help you quite tremendously on this side. Now, once you've done that, huzzah, you've got money in the bank, you got people wanting to do business with you, you're doing good. Now we're going to move down this way. Now we move to the activation phase. Activation. Activation is what occurs when somebody buys your thing and now they're using the thing, but they need to get a result with the thing, because they didn't just buy your product, your service for the shits and giggles. They did it because they thought it could solve a problem for them. And so now we need to deliver that solution to them, and we need to solve the problem that happens during the activation phase, the delivery phase, the operations phase, whatever you want to call it. But this is all about having a good product that actually does what you said, and then a good process for your team delivering that. And I say team because it's, if you want to build a successful business that's doing $100,000 to $1 million a year, it can't just be you delivering. You're gonna have to figure out a system, a process for other people to deliver that for you. So that's where having a real actual business comes in. It's pretty awesome, right? Once we activate, now we have this customer, they have got the product, they've got the solution, they're getting results. That's awesome. Now we want to get them to advocate. We want them to become an advocate for our business. We want to get referrals, we want to get testimonials, we want to get reviews. All of these things are other ways for us to get value out of that singular customer. Think about this. A person comes in to become aware. They're just a lead at this point, right? They start to consider the product, and now they're converting. Now at conversion, they become a customer. We have one person in the ecosystem and we sell them this one thing. What are the other ways that we can make them more valuable to the business? How do we increase the lifetime value of that individual? Well, you could sell them more stuff. That's the obvious one. That's an upsell, cross-sell, downsell, all that. But before that, I would hazard that the next most valuable thing that you can do before getting that person to buy more stuff from you is to get them to become an advocate, to get them to leave the review, to collect testimonials, case studies, all of that stuff. Because then that is going to help you down here in your awareness and consideration efforts for future leads. This is where the flywheel becomes incredibly powerful. It gives you social proof, which is one of the most powerful tools of influence. So advocate is the next step. Once we have them advocating for us, now it's quite easy. If somebody has bought our product, they like us, they've gotten the results, they've gone on to leave a review and a testimonial for us, it's very easy at this point to get them to ascend. Ascend. Now, ascension is all about what's the next thing that you can sell them? How can you increase the lifetime value? That doesn't necessarily mean, by the way, that you're selling them something more expensive than the first thing you sold them, right? Maybe they came in for a coaching program up here at $5,000 a month. Maybe your ascension is actually getting them into a software or a dashboard, a scorecard that your team uses for $1,000, right? But what you've done is you've increased the total lifetime value of that customer to you. You could also then upsell them, say, to one-on-one coaching. Maybe this was $5,000 for group coaching. Maybe this is $50,000 for one-on-one. That's a more expensive product. As a general rule, the easiest people to sell to are people who've already bought from you. So instead of going out there and constantly thinking, how do I make more people aware? How do I get them to consider? Think about people within your own ecosystem already, and how can you increase their lifetime value? So when we're in this ascension phase, what's really interesting is they actually kind of go back to the beginning, because now they become aware that you have this other product, this other service, and then they start to consider it, and then you convert them and they go back into the cycle, into the loop. And that's why we call it the magical customer journey. It's an infinite loop. You do this right, and you get one customer in. That customer is going to turn into two customers here in the advocate phase, where they make a referral or they give you a testimonial, right? And then they're going to increase their own lifetime value as they come back into the bottom of the marketing funnel to get sold to again, something even better. So that is, and you got to figure this out for your own business, right? This is the trick, is that I can go through this and I can talk about it at a high level. You need to be able to identify in your own business, where is the choke point? Where's the bottleneck? And that takes us to the next framework. This might be my favorite framework, I learned about this back in 2016. We were building Escape Climate. This is a manufacturing business. We produced polyurethane widgets and imported hardware from China for the purposes of building commercial climbing gyms. And manufacturing is a very, very hard business, first of all. There's a lot of theory around it, but there's just so many moving parts. Well, I dug deep because I knew nothing about manufacturing up to that point. That's another lesson here about entrepreneurship, is that you really don't need to know what you're doing when you get in. Like, to be successful, the most successful people that you look up to in this game, they didn't know what they were doing. They just had a high degree of certainty that they could figure it out, right? They had a high degree of conviction, commitment, consistency, and clarity. That's all. They didn't necessarily, you'll notice here, like the manifestation machine, like you didn't need to know how to do the thing. That stuff kind of figures itself out if you have the other four. But with that manufacturing business, I didn't know what I was doing. So I read a lot of books. And one of the books that I read was called The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt. And in it, he tells this story. It's one of my favorite business books because instead of just being a dry business book about like, here's the framework, here's what to do, he tells it in the form of a parable or just an allegory about this guy who goes into this manufacturing business. So it's very, very readable. But the whole concept revolves around this thing called the T.O.C. And the T.O.C. stands for the theory of constraints. Now, you've probably heard this before. And this might sound very basic, and you might be tuning out right now and be like, I know all about the theory of constraints. Listen up, bucko. I'm telling you, there are infinite levels to this concept right here. It's interesting, on a side, in this game of business, in the game of entrepreneurship, I believe it's like the most powerful tool for personal development. It's actually why I'm the most interested in business and helping you expand your enterprise. It's not actually about helping you win the money game or make a ton of money or any of that stuff. It's actually just that the person you become in the process of building this big, amazing thing, I think that's a really cool person. And I want more of the world to be filled with people like that. And one of the hallmarks of successful entrepreneurs is the mindset that within a simple concept, there is infinite depth within a simple concept. And so instead of hearing a simple concept and then saying just, oh, yeah, I get that, whatever, and like moving on and thinking that you've checked the box, I want you to go deeper and ask yourself, okay, this simple but profound idea, what other nuggets does it have for me? I'm gonna share with you how this one framework in like a 15-minute conversation with one of my students completely transformed his business within just a 15-minute phone call. And he was a very accomplished individual, very accomplished entrepreneur who thought he understood the theory of constraints. But again, there's this inability to see what's directly in front of you when you are the problem, right? So the theory of constraints simply says that a system will not grow beyond its biggest constraint. The chain is only as strong as its weakest link. The pipe is only going to put out as much throughput as its biggest constriction. Release that constriction and the pipe will flow more freely. Now, here's the thing about the theory of constraints is it's not just about alleviating constraints. It's about alleviating the next constraint in sequence. If you solve the constraint but out of sequence, you will be doing work, and it might even be useful work, but it won't be the most useful work. And so what I see happening a lot of times is people will correctly identify, okay, so awareness, we are really good at getting leads, but we suck at consideration, we suck at conversion, and we're pretty good at activation, right? And so they start working on conversion because they see that as the biggest constraint. But is it the next constraint in the system is the question to be asking. Because if you put all your time and energy into solving for conversion, but you have not yet solved for the consideration problem, then even if you open up that gate wide, the floodgates are wide open, you still have a throughput issue because you haven't solved the constraint preceding the biggest constraint. That is the important takeaway here. It's not about solving the biggest constraint. It's about solving the most important constraint. And that is the constraint that is constraining all the other constraints. That's crazy, I know, but I'm telling you, when your face is up against the tree, you can't see the woods, right? It's hard to read the label from inside the bottle. And inside of your own business, this is the game, is identifying What is the constraint that's constraining all the other constraints? Not the biggest constraint, the most important constraint. So here's a way to visualize this, right? Up here, we have, we have customers, let's say, coming in, right? Money coming through the door. This would be, let's say, this is a very simple drawing, but let's say that this is our marketing. Let's say this is our sales. Let's say this is our activation or our delivery mechanism, right? Very, very simple. If we're just boiling business down, you gotta, make people aware that you exist, convert them into leads, deliver the product, right? So this is awareness, conversion, delivery, voila. Now, if up here in marketing, if we have this figured out and we're just like, oh yeah, we have so much awareness. Our content on Instagram is getting millions of views. We're getting thousands of people signing up for our newsletter. We've got the marketing thing figured out, cool. But let's say your sales or conversion really suck. Like you get people on a call and you sound like an idiot and you don't know how to pitch the thing and you're not getting people enrolled because they're like, I'm not convinced that this is the right thing for me, whatever, right? Let's just say that you're struggling, right? So you're only putting through, $1 sign, whereas up here you've got $3 signs worth of throughput. Down here in activation, you might have, let's say you're a coach, you have a coaching program, and you have 4 coaches underneath of you. But each one of those coaches is currently only 50% occupied with their time, with their bandwidth. That means that they could take on more and you could be delivering more, but you're currently constrained because you're only able to convert $1 sign worth of sales. So down here in your bucket at the end of the day, you only got $1 sign. If you were to solve for the constraint of sales and get it up to $2 signs, then you'd have $2 signs here. This is super simplistic, but it's important because, again, this is the reason your business isn't growing right now. It has a constraint. And if it's not growing the way that you want it to, it's because you're not solving the constraint that's actually constraining the system, or you're not solving it fast enough. Both of those can be the problem. Now, here's a story. I onboarded a student, Tom, back in September. Tom runs a very successful coaching program, teaching others how to create. I'm not going to go into it actually, because if I do, you'll figure out who he is. So I don't want to dox him. Anyway, we sit down on the very first call, and he's like, "Listen, I have a ton of leads coming in. I have solved the marketing thing. I have more leads than I can even get to. I need to spend more time working on the product to deliver, and I need to spend more time in sell by chat, because that's his predominant way of converting those leads." And in that conversation, as we're sitting there, I was like, "Okay, so what's the constraint?" And he's like, "Well, right now I have a lot of leads. I need to convert the leads that I have." But going one level even higher than that, I was like, "Okay, how is the business overall? Would you rate its health? Like, are you making as much money as you want?" It was like, "Well, this month we're on pace to hit this, this great revenue number." Or actually, I've made, let's say, $50,000 in sales, just throwing out numbers here. But I'm having a cash collected issue, which is he's putting everybody on a payment plan. And so he had $50,000 of revenue, but he only had $10,000 of cash collected, and he was running into a cash crunch. And so when we sat down to start the conversation, he wanted to talk about how to increase his conversion rates, right? Because he's like, "Well, I have all these leads. I need to figure out how to convert them higher, and then I need to work on my product." But really the constraint in his business was the cash flow crunch. Because if he could have figured out how to, instead of having a 3-month delay between when he made the sale and when he collected the revenue, he could invest in hiring people right then and there to come into the team to help him with the marketing, to help him with the sales, to help him with the delivery, right? And so he actually had a cash flow constriction, not a marketing, not a sales, not an operations. And so when we think about business, that's the third, we call that the third estate, right? You have the marketing function, you have the operations function, and you have the finance function. Like, how do you manage cash flows over time? And so we looked at it, and I was like, "Dude, you don't actually have the problems you think you do over here. You have a cash flow problem." And we're going to talk about cash flow a little bit later down here in the 2-hour revenue playbook. But In short, what you need to do, because you have so many leads, because you have so many that are converting, you need to stop offering people this payment plan that is killing your cash flow conversion cycle. Instead, I want you on your next calls to just offer them a paid in full. It's $7,500 rather than, 3 or 4 payments of $1,000 or 2,000 or whatever it was, right? So he's like, "Oh, you sure I can do that?" I'm like, when you have that many leads coming in, and you have like a pretty good conversion cycle, then you can afford to raise your prices and hold the line there. If people start to say no, then you can always come back. So he goes that afternoon, has like three calls. He pitches the full paid in full price. He comes to me later, same day, and he's like, "Yep, I just collected $20,000." Which up to that point he had only collected $10,000 for the previous month's $50,000 worth of sales. So right there, that was the constraint within the business. It was how he was pitching and offering the payment plans. That was the secret to getting him to actual $50,000 a month cash collected rather than just that vanity metric of revenue. So that's an example of how sometimes we solve the wrong problem. We solve it out of order. We're not even aware of what the actual constraint is. But becoming a master of the theory of constraint, the T.O.C, that's going to be a game changer for you. So next, let's talk about the magnetic media machine. What I want to do here is, and by the way, if you want more frameworks like this, like one of my special gifts, besides the fact that I turned my ADHD into a superpower and I got the hell out of that van and built some businesses, is I'm pretty good at breaking down complex ideas that you can implement inside your business. If you want frameworks like this for free, delivered to your inbox each week, you can go to sign up for the newsletter. It's down in the description or down in the comments, or I'm not even sure where it is, but you can go find it, sign up for that. It's totally free. You'll get more frameworks like this delivered to you. And then if you actually want help implementing this stuff into your business, because information is free, right? Information is not the valuable part. I charge $10,000 for this stuff, but it's not actually for the frameworks. It's for the implementation. It's for the hand holding to help you figure out what is the actual constraint in the business. How do you plug that framework in to solve it? If you want help with that, you can go to beyondtheapex.com and you can apply. I run a very small group coaching program for a select number of entrepreneurs that are doing usually around 6 figures to 7 figures. And they're trying to make the jump to 7, 8 figures. And so if that's you, if you got a business already doing at least 10K a month and you want help getting to 100K to $1 million a month, go sign up for beyondtheapex.com. If it's a good fit, I'll reach out. So otherwise, just join the newsletter, totally free. And keep watching these videos because we put these out for free for you because we love you. All right, let's talk about the magnetic media machine. So down here on the magical customer journey, this is the very first place that we're going to start is with awareness. How do we make people aware that we exist? This is the most powerful thing I ever did in my businesses. The first business I was involved in was a 7-figure window washing company. And that I fell ass backwards into. I got really lucky. We grew that off the back of knocking on doors, door knockers, Google SEO ads, but we were very not sophisticated at that time. We grew just through grunt, brute labor of knocking on doors. That was like largely it, and then referrals. It wasn't until 2019 when I was exiting Escape Climbing that I realized I had made a fundamental mistake in the first 7-ish years of my career, or maybe 5-ish years, which was all the businesses I had been building up to that point, we built them in a way that the business was the brand. It was front and center. Me and my partners, we were always behind the scenes. Like we didn't think that there needed to be a face of the company for a window washing company. We didn't think that there needed to be a face of the company for climbing holds. It didn't occur to us. And so what ended up happening is at the end of 2019, I exited that business and I went and I started my next endeavor, which was a real estate private equity fund that we scaled to. At its peak, it had a value of over $100 million. So what I realized though, when I went to do that is because I hadn't been building a brand, a reputation for myself, I had to start all over. Each time I exited a business, I had to start all over because I didn't have any reputation. And in business, pretty much all the growth you could want is on the other side of your reach and your reputation. So if enough people know who you are and they like the reputation that you have and they believe that you can help them, then you're gonna do pretty well. So at the end of 2019, I'm sitting here to start this new business and I'm like, man, I need to create something that has more longevity, that lives beyond just a singular enterprise, because when I exit it, I lose the flywheel, the momentum that I've been building up. I want to build a personal media machine, an empire that is attached to me so that I can then attach it to my different businesses. And so this is where the idea of the magnetic media machine was born. With Escape Climbing, we started to play with it to understand the idea of how do we think about our marketing engine for our businesses, not just as we put out content and hope people see it, but actually as a monetizable media empire on its own. Like, how does it become its own thing? And so there's three sides to the magnetic media machine. The first is to magnetize. And I believe, by the way, that every business should have a media machine bolted onto it. I think it's the easiest way to take that business, whether it's doing $1 million a month and it wants to go to 10 million a month. I think bolting on a media empire onto that is the most powerful way. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to magnetize. That is, you think about a magnet has two sides to it, right? I'm gonna draw, and I apologize for that because I am just a terrible drawer. Okay, that's my magnet. And a magnet will either attract or it will repel, right? A magnet will either attract, I don't know a lot about magnetic theory, so do magnets attract like or opposite? You let me know in the comments, because I know somebody out there is dying to tell me, like, it's actually this. So let me know. Magnet attracts, magnet repels. Our goal in building a magnetic media machine is to attract the people who are going to be our raving fans and to repel the people who are not. Now, this is important because most people, when they go into the media world, when they start creating content, try to drum up awareness, they go very plain Jane vanilla. And they're trying to water down their message to be liked by everybody because they don't want to offend anybody. All the things that make you weird and unique, you kind of tone those down. You know, you go to the party and you don't let your full freak flag fly because you don't want to, scare people. But the problem with that is that, one, you're talking to nobody, because nobody's interested in that. Nobody's interested in your plain Jane self. Now, your freaky self, there's some other freaks out there who are gonna be like, I like that freak. There's gonna be a bunch of people though, most people, 90% of people, who will look at you and your freaky weirdness and they're gonna be like, I want nothing to do with that. And that turns off most entrepreneurs. They go, oh, I don't wanna repel those 90%. But here's the thing, is that 90% of the people were never gonna buy from you to begin with. But by repelling them, you create even more attraction and magnetism to the people who are potentially interested in doing business with you. So instead of trying to be nothing to everybody, try to be everything to just someone, one person, very small niche. And you do that by really understanding what makes you attractive and what makes you repellent. And then leaning into that with your messaging. There's more to this, but we're keeping all of these frameworks high level here. Each one of these, I could spend an hour, I do actually, in Beyond the Apex and the weekly group coaching that I do, I spend an hour on each one of these, breaking it down. They're very, very deep concepts, but for the purpose of this video today, and the fact that you probably want to get some sleep at some point, we're gonna keep this mellow. Okay, so my pen. So we magnetize. Next, we need to mechanize. That is, we need to create systems, processes, SOPs. We need to have softwares. We need to have tools. We need to have all of these sophisticated. Oh, I'm just kidding. You can get very sophisticated with your mechanization process. Some people get too crazy. Some people, they use that as an excuse, as a masturbatory excuse to not actually do the thing that will drive results. They sit and they spend all their time creating this beautiful, complex, elegant system, and they spend very, very little time actually executing the system. In my experience, complex systems are usually a way of disguising inefficiency. The more complex the system is, the less likely it is to actually drive the result you're hoping for. And so when it comes to mechanizing your media machine, I want you to think about what are the fewest number of steps and processes and tools that you need in that equation for it to be successful. I am pretty basic. I have built multiple 8-figure businesses, one 9-figure business, off the back of Google Drive, off of Notion, off of Dropbox. You don't need crazy tools, you just need to be crazy good with those tools. But you will need to figure out how to mechanize the process at some point, because again, your ability to build a successful business depends on how well you work with and through other people, how you recruit people to your team, get them rowing in the collective direction of your dream, and then you do that through mechanics. So I'm not going to break down what those systems and processes are here. Again, if you want that stuff, sign up for the newsletter. I think that's like anthonyvicino.com/newsletter. Otherwise, there's probably a link somewhere. Third is we need to figure out how to monetize our magnetic media machine. This is pretty damn important, because if you have 1 million people following you on Instagram, but you have no way of getting those people to actually give you money, you're gonna have a really hard time growing your business. And this is funny because I would say, majority of the influencers that you see on Instagram and on YouTube here, they really struggle to monetize their audience. They built this machine where it gets all these eyeballs, they entertain people, they're doing all of this whiz bang boom crazy stuff, but they can't get a single person to give them $1. That is not a very effective business model at the end of the day. Ask me how I know. Now I have, my larger YouTube channel has 300,000 subscribers on it. My LinkedIn has 100,000. So I know a thing or two about building large audiences, but I also know a thing or two about monetization. And if I had to choose every single day of the week, I'm going to choose monetization over audience size. If you can't figure that part out, you're going to struggle to grow. So that is a magnetic media machine. Now, let's talk about funnel vision. Again, we're working our way through the magical customer journey up here into consideration. Now, this is actually a more holistic view of the entire marketing process. Really, this is the simplest funnel you need to think about. And honestly, I think funnels as a marketing concept is a little bit outdated, because it presumes that we know. Remember how I talked about the gap between awareness and consideration? A lot of marketing gurus will tell you that you need to have 7 touches with a consumer before they become aware of your product, before they start considering it. I don't think it's possible to even know how many touches it takes for somebody to become aware of it. So the idea of a funnel presumes that we know where they go step A through step B through step C. But that's not really how people move through our funnels anymore. People move through our funnels much more chaotically. Like they come here, then they go over here, they come over here. I just drew this thing that it's nothing, it's just a bunch of dots. It's more like a messy ecosystem. And our goal is to get people trapped in our ecosystem, and then eventually they give us money. Just money randomly pops out. But the idea of a funnel, it's simplistic for our purposes of understanding the different parts of the machine, but it's actually not a great way to really think about the process. Anywho, first is we need to create awareness, which we already know, right? Awareness up here. And we do that through temporary content. Temporary content. Temporary content is the type of content that you see on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, right? It's the content that's very algorithm dependent. You put it out there, you do a reel, you do a short, you do a LinkedIn post. It's gonna survive for like 24 hours. It might have this moment where it goes viral, but outside of that, the algorithm is gonna devalue it, it's gonna disappear. The best reel in the world isn't gonna be relevant in 30 days from now, right? You put it out there and you need to keep putting content out there. That's why we call it temporary content. But the value of the temporary content is that it drives awareness. It makes people aware that your business exists. You could put out a reel. You could put out a reel right now that gets seen by 1 million people. That's 1 million people that know you exist. Now, that's probably not going to be enough to get them to buy something from you. You need to move them down the funnel to the next phase. That is to the consideration phase. Consideration. Again, I'm really sorry about my handwriting. Wish I could do something about that. Okay, it's too late in life. Old dog, no tricks. Okay, so we have awareness with our temporary content. The goal of that, they see your 60-second TikTok and they're like, I like the way you dance. Let's see what else you got, right? The consideration is born from our evergreen content. Evergreen content is content that is not algorithm dependent. That is podcasts. It could be books. It could be YouTube videos like this one that you're watching right now. It could be an SEO optimized blog article, right? It's something that you create one time and it's possible for it to be discovered into perpetuity. I've had videos that 9 months, 12 months, 18 months after they launched went gangbusters viral for whatever reason. If you go to the main channel, one of my favorite videos that I've ever created is called 5 Mental Models to Help You Think Like a Strategic Genius. And I used my past experience of playing competitive chess as the framework to share ideas of how you can grow your business and your personal life. And that was a video I loved. I was so proud of it. And yet when I launched it, like in the first 9 months, it only had like 25,000 views, which for that channel, which was averaging like 150,000 views per video, that was a real bummer. I was like, oh, that was a real flop. It's like the worst performing video we'd ever put out. But then you fast forward 12 months later and the video went from 25,000 to 250,000, like practically overnight. Then over the course of the next 3 or 4 months, it jumped up again. Right now, I think it just cracked 1 million views, which makes it like our 4th most viewed video on that channel ever. So it went from being a complete dud to a complete stud. And it didn't do that based off of any tweaks or anything that we did. It was just the fact that it was evergreen content that was discoverable into perpetuity. So if you make great evergreen content, that's the takeaway here. Make great evergreen content and people can find it. They will get to know you, they will learn to like you, and then they will go to the next phase, down here. Third. So up here we have awareness. Down here we have consideration. Now we, if you're following along, go for conversion, right? Conversion. So this is the marketing side of the magical customer journey, right? It's a whole logo over here. Cool how that works, right? Conversion occurs when we send people to controlled media. Controlled media. So up here we had temporary content. Down here it drives people once they become aware of us. We put out our Instagram video. They go, oh, I like this person. I like the way they dance. Then they go and they say, I want to learn more about you. They find your podcast. They listen to your podcast. They're like, you got some kooky views on the world, man, but I like the cut of your jib. What kind of products and services you got? Then they go to conversion, to controlled media. This is media that you control, that you own. This is your newsletter. This is your website. The value of this is that everything that's happened up here in the top of the funnel is actually a very fragile system because you don't own it, you don't control it, right? You put out content on Instagram, you might have 100,000 subscribers or followers on Instagram, but if Instagram decides to demonetize you, if they decide to shut down your reach, overnight your audience is gone, right? Same with YouTube, you don't own your YouTube audience. When you make a video, you don't have the ability to make sure that every one of your subscribers sees it. Like I have, 300,000 subscribers on the main channel, put out a video, it will get served to a small percentage of those subscribers. So you're always at the mercy of these platforms when you're using the top 2 parts of this funnel. Nothing that you can do about that. But as soon as possible, you want to drive them to something that you control. Which is why, if you notice earlier in this video, I said, if you want more frameworks like this, you should join, what was that? My free newsletter. That's right. Go to anthonyvicino.com/newsletter. That is my attempt to take this relationship, this virtual relationship, where right now you are considering potentially ever wanting to work with me, right? This is evergreen content that you're consuming. My goal is now to get you to go to controlled media, go to my website, go to my newsletter. The power of that is that when I have something that I want to sell, I can make sure that you see it. I can send you an email because you gave me permission. I'm just being very transparent. That's how the funnel works. You see how the sausage is made. You need this for your business. I don't care what kind of business you have, you need this. For instance, with escape climbing, we grew that off the back of organic content on Instagram, off of YouTube, and then off of paid ads on Amazon and Google. We collected tens of thousands of email addresses from people who bought our other products. We had this big, robust email list, this newsletter, that we never used. It just was sitting there. And then one day we had this idea, what happens if we just send them an email? and just say, hey, here's what we're working on. Here's some other stuff. That one email went out, and within 1 hour, we had made another $10,000, all attributable to that one email. And I was like, whoa, we should send more emails, right? So every week we would send another email. So that is a product business, but it's the same if it's a service business. It doesn't matter what you have. Having the ability to reach out to people that have given you that permission to say, hey, here's what we're doing. Are you interested in it? That is going to make you a lot more money. So again, from a high level, funnel vision is all about generate awareness through your temporary content, drive that into consideration with your evergreen content, and then drive the conversion to your controlled media. You get that figured out, you get your little ecosystem up here humming, you're gonna make a lot of money. Now, let's take a pivot. I'm gonna share with you what might just be the most valuable thing. It'll make you the most money, probably. If you get this, if you master this up here, this is called the 7-figure sales script. This is a sales script that if you're struggling to get people up here converting into actual paid customers, it's probably because your sales process sucks. Your sales script sucks. So this sales script I have used to sell hundreds of thousands, no, millions of dollars, actually tens of millions of real estate investment opportunities, of widgets through the escape climbing, through window washing services, you name it, like we've used the 7-figure sales script. The first thing that I want you to really drill into your head is that sales is the most important skill that you can have as an entrepreneur. Like the ability to, if you think about what sales is, it's really influence, right? The ability to influence the behavior of somebody else into doing something that's in alignment with your goals, your wishes, your desires. Could be that your goal is to get them to buy a thing. Could be that you want to convince them to come work for you. It could be that you want to convince a vendor to work with you, right? That's all a sales process. The ability to influence other people's behaviors is a superpower in the game of business. And so it's well worth understanding all the things that go into that on a psychological level. There's a great book, potentially the most valuable book I've ever read, is Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. He breaks down a lot of the reasons why this sales script is so damn powerful. I'm not going to get too into the weeds of this. I did another podcast video specifically about this sales script video. I'll put it in the description. Go find it on the channel. It'll go into this in more depth. But this, again, incredibly valuable. So let's say you're selling a $10,000 widget. Let's just presume, right? This is the sales process. This is sales script. You get them on the call. You're sitting down with them. I want you to go through this process. First is frame. First is frame. And I'm going to fly through this thing because I did a much deeper depth video of this already on the channel. So go check that out. We're going to frame the conversation. Hey, this is really, you as the salesperson will often feel like you are the one begging. That person, the customer, the prospect has the thing that you want. And so you come off as the beggar. You're trying to be amenable. You're trying to be there, helpful, answer all their questions, right? That's actually the wrong frame that you want to be in. What you want to be in is the position that they have come to you because you have the solution to a problem they might have. It's very different. If you have cancer and you come to me thinking I have the cure to cancer, then I might sell this to you, but I am in the position of control in this relationship. And so that's the mindset shift, is that when you are in a sales conversation, you potentially have the solution to that person's problem, which makes you the more valuable one in that relationship. It makes you the belle at the ball, assuming that you can own the frame. And you do that by owning what's called the doctor frame. A doctor frame is all about setting the tone to say, listen, you come to the doctor because you have a pain. My job as a doctor is to diagnose, is to figure out what's going on and then determine what the right course of action is moving forward. And if you struggle with sales, if you think that sales is like the sleazy thing or you feel weird and awkward, then here's the magical mental reframe that's very, very helppful, which is sales is service. I think sales is the ultimate form of service, actually. Because again, I like to use the example of if you have cancer, the cure to cancer, you owe it on a moral level to the other person to convince them that you can help them. If your product can actually make somebody's life better, if it can actually solve the problem that they have, you would be doing them a disservice by not doing everything in your power to help them make a decision that would help them solve the problem. Now, the reason sales gets a really shitty rap is because there are people out there who are better salespeople than they are ethical people. And so they figure out, oh, this person came in with pain in their leg. And they're like, you know what? I sell ice wraps for shoulder pain, right? Or like, let's say you have a gunshot wound. It's like, I sell Band-Aids. I'm going to sell you a Band-Aid. It's like, that's not solving the problem, right? The people who give sales a bad rap are the ones who just sell the thing regardless of whether or not it'll actually help the person. Don't be that person. You want to figure out, do you actually have something that can help them? And then once you determine that, you do everything in your power to make the sale because you know it can help them. But first and foremost, we need to frame the conversation with the doctor frame. Hey, I have a process that I go through to quickly determine if I can actually help you. And if I can help you, I'm going to lay out what that might look like. But if not, my goal is to help you make that decision, get to that point as quickly as possible so I don't waste your time, right? The worst thing to do is waste somebody's time after you figure out that they're not the right fit. So step one is we frame ourselves as the doctor, there to diagnose and even figure out if they have a problem that we can solve. And if they do, then we'll move forward. But if we don't, you do not sell them. And trust me, like you don't want to lose the respect and reputation that you have for yourself by selling something that you don't believe in, right? And you don't believe in it when you sell it to somebody who isn't served by it. Anywho, frame. That's step one. Step two is we need to figure out who they are, what they do, how they do it, right? We need to understand them. So you need to ask some questions. And this is all about qualifying. So if we look over here, we're qualifying the prospect. This whole first row is about qualifying. So set the frame. Second is who are you? What do you do? How do you do it? And you want to figure out, is this your avatar, right? You should have your avatar in your mind, the person that you help. I help 22-year-olds, skate better and do sick tricks, right? The guy comes in, he's like, I'm 42, I've never ridden a skateboard in my life and I have no interest in it. Well, it'd be good to know that right away, right? Because then you could be like, you're in the wrong place. I don't know how you got here, but you're lost. I'm lost. And come back if you want to do some sick tricks. So who, what, how. Next is you want to start to position. Once you have this, you want to position who you are in relation to them, and you want to start to overcome a future objection that most people will put once you get far enough into this process, is they will raise the objection, oh, I need more time, I'm not right now, right? We want to make sure that this is a person who, if we go through this whole process, is going to come out the other end and they're ready and willing to make a decision then and there. So the things that you want to ask is, why me? And why now? You can't read that. We'll go, me, now. Why me helps frame you as the expert, right? It puts you in a position, again, as the doctor friend. So why me? And it could just be, hey, I got hit by one of your ads, so I hopped in this call. I don't know anything else about you. I was just trying to get more information. Cool. That's helpful, right? To know that you're cold and I'm going to have to work extra hard and I have to give you some explanations of who I am. However, if you come and you're like, why me? And you're like, well, I've been consuming your content for years now. It's been so helpful. It helped me grow my business from 10 to 50,000 and I'm ready to go from 50,000 to 500,000. And I want your help to do it because my other buddy who's worked with you in the past, he did it and he says it's the greatest thing in the world. I'm like, sweet. I could probably just give you the payment link right now. We're good to go, right? Two different prospects. You want to understand why me and you want them to position it for you. Second is why now? Why now are you trying to solve this problem? You're really trying to understand how much of a pain point this is for the other person. Do they actually want to solve this right now, or are they still just in information gathering mode? When somebody tells me I'm still just in information gathering mode, I go, cool, why don't you circle back around when you're ready to make a decision, when this is painful enough that you actually want to solve the problem? Because I'm not in the habit of just spending my life, my time, giving people more information. If I do that, I'm going to do it in a one-to-many manner rather than a one-to-one manner. Hence these videos, right? Okay, so now that we've qualified the individual, now we need to start to stretch the gap, presuming that they are a good fit for us. So this next part of the seven-figure sales script is all about stretching the gap. So the first thing that we want to understand is the future. What is it that you want the future to look like for this person, right? So for me, let's say business coach. I'm bringing somebody in and we're having a sales call. Where do you want your business to be in 3 years? Where do you want it to be in 12 months? What do you envision? What are your goals? Right? Oh, I'd like to be doing $1 million in top line revenue. I'd like to only be working 20 hours a week. I'd like to have a team of 10 people, blah, 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 right? All working remotely. Cool. We need to understand, we need to future pace. What is the thing that we're building towards? Without this information, we can't actually know what it is that they want. Right? We can't sell them the vacation if we don't actually know what their vision of a dream vacation looks like. If I sit down and I try to pitch you on this beautiful vacation in Hawaii sitting on a beach and you're like, I fucking hate sand. You're Anakin Skywalker. You're like, sand, it's coarse. It gets everywhere. It's horrible. Like, then I've pitched the wrong person. You're like, I like snow. Send me the snow. I need to know what your future looks like, what your dream for the future looks like. By the way, notice what I just did there with the Anakin reference. If you're a Star Wars nerd, I might have mentioned this previously, but I did say that I wrote 12 best-selling novels at one point. Those are science fiction and fantasy, right? I am a nerd. And so when I make Star Wars references about Anakin Skywalker, 90% of people are going to be repelled by that. They're going to be like, I don't understand that. But there will be 10% of you who are like, that is my dude. That is my guy right there. See if it's enough to build a business off of, but it is. Anyway, okay, so we understand the future that you're trying to build towards. Now I need to understand your present. Once we've helped you create this future cast, to see the vision of your life and what it could be, what you're hoping this product will help you get to, now I need to understand where you are. Because there is going to be a gap. There's going to be a gap between where you want to be and where you are. If there wasn't, you wouldn't be here. Right? If your present is already a mirror of the future that you say you want, I'm like, cool, sounds like you got it all figured out. You don't have a problem I can solve, right? But there's always a gap between where they want to be. Hey, I want to be at $1 million revenue. I want to be working 20 hours a week, and I want to have a team of 10 working remotely. Cool, where are you at currently? Well, I'm only at $10,000 a month. I am working 70 hours a week, and I have a team of 2. Cool, all right. So you're only 10% of the way to your revenue goal. You're 200% of the way to your working goal, and you have nobody on your team doing anything. It's just you pretty much. Awesome. Now that you understand that, where they are versus where they want to be, you want to understand what are the obstacles. The obstacles. And you want them to list off 5 to 7 obstacles standing between them, their present reality, and the future that they say that they want. So, okay, so you want, to double, or you want to 10x your revenue, you want to decrease by half your working hours, and you want to increase the size of your team. What's standing in the way of that right now? Most people will be like, oh, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't know what to do, I don't know what would be the next hire, I don't know how to get more leads, right? All sorts of things. You, within your context of your business, you will have heard these 5 to 7 obstacles before. These will not be new to you because you will hear the people that you serve, your demographic, saying them over and over and over and over again. But this person on this call will say it in a unique way. They'll say it in a unique order. Certain things will be more painful to them. Certain things won't be, even on the top of their mind. What we're doing here is we are getting them to articulate in their own words the problems that are standing between them and the future that they claim that they want. And this is going to be very, very important when we go down into the final row, which is enroll. We're going to enroll the person now. And we do that by talking about the program, service, product, or whatever the thing is, right? Now, here's where the magic really happens, guys, is when you're talking about your program, you'll notice up here, this is all about them. It's all about the prospect, understanding their pain points, their world, the solutions that they want to have, the vacations that they seek, right? It's only here that we finally start talking about what you do and how it might help them. But when you're pitching your program, your product, your service, you have now been armed with very valuable knowledge, which is, in their own words, what pain points they think are the biggest problem standing between them and their goals. And now, when you pitch your program, your product, your service, you can frame it with the language that they've already articulated to you. And the reason this is so powerful is because if a person is capable of articulating to you the pain you're already experiencing in the words that are already happening inside your own mind, you are naturally going to conclude that that person probably also has the solution. You're going to be like, that person really gets it. Of course, it's unrealistic that they would be able to articulate my problems in that level of detail and clarity if they did not also know how to solve it. They will just assume you do. That's not a bad thing. Anyway, so once we are showing them the program, we're getting them into the language that they've already reflected back to us. Now we enroll. And the enrolling process this is where most sales calls go off the rails. It's actually just saying, what do you want to do next? Where do you think we should go from here? Right? And it's during this process that you're really overcoming and handling objections. So any objections that they have of, I don't have the time, oh, I need a little bit more information, I need to talk to my wife, I don't have the money right now, all of those objections, they're all being handled here in this enrolling process. And you're doing this, they raise their objection, you work through that objection with them. They raise the next objection, you work through that objection with them. And as you do that, you keep finally just asking them. Cool. Well, you said time was an issue, but now we've solved that issue, right? I gave you an example, like you wouldn't frame it like this, right? But it's like, oh, I just don't know. It sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like a big time commitment, this program. It sounds exactly like what I need. Right now I'm really busy. I don't know if I have, the time to put into this and get the results. It's like, well, do you have at least 15 minutes a day? Just 15 minutes? Well, yeah, I have 15 minutes a day. Cool. That's all that we ask. We have 15 minutes of video modules that you go through every single day. It was enough for Susan. She just put in 15 minutes every single day over 30 days. That adds up, and you're going to start seeing meaningful results. So could you commit to that? And I'm like, oh yeah, 15 minutes. That's not too bad. Cool. So does it make sense for us to get started? I ask, right? And they will raise the next objection. Or they will say, no, I don't want this. Or they will say, yes, let's get started. Most people never actually ask the person if they want to take the next step. They just feel really awkward. They feel uncomfortable about it. And so they say things like, well, I'll follow up with you. I'll send you some more information. And you let me know if you'd like to get started. And then they never reach back out. And so your sales conversions are like absolutely garbage simply because you didn't ask. You didn't ask the person. Now, there's this right here is like a 4-hour training just on its own. If you want that, go watch the other video that I mentioned before. But this right here, this is going to make you a ton of money if you internalize the script and you go into every single conversation with a person thinking about, how do I position myself? How do I frame it so that I'm the doctor? How do I get them to pitch me on why me, why now? How do I start to stretch the gap between where does it they want to be, where they currently are, and what's standing in their way? And then how do I position the solution in the same language that they've already articulated to me as being one of the things standing between them and their goals? You do that and you're going to make a lot of money. So that is the 7-figure sales script. The next framework I want to talk about is maybe one of the things that is potentially the most surprising that I find when I'm working with new entrepreneurs is this idea of the 2-hour revenue playbook. When I ask 90% of entrepreneurs, if in the next 2 hours you absolutely had to go make another $10,000 for your business, what are the actions you would take? Most people that I talk to don't actually have a good answer for that. They have a lot of answers around the marketing. They're like, I could make a video, I could put out a social media post, right? But they don't actually have like a tactical, what are the next 4 steps, 4 actions that you could take that would drive revenue to your business? And so there's really 4 things that you can do. It's what creates this 2-hour revenue playbook. And this is really powerful because I recommend not just doing this as a mental exercise of saying, if in the next 2 hours you had to make $10,000 more money, what would you do? But to actually say, every day I'm going to dedicate 2 hours to executing this revenue playbook, and every day you will make more money. Surprise, surprise. I know it's really crazy. If you do things that make you money, if you do more of the things that make you money, you'll make more money. But what are those things that you need to do? Well, that is the 2-hour revenue playbook. I've done videos on this. If you get, I have this in a playbook, a training. If you want that, you need to go to anthonyvicino.com/revenue and you can download it. Just revenue. Rev and new. Go there, download that playbook, that training, and I'm gonna unpack that. And I promise you that one right there is probably the quickest win if you wanna make more money in your business. Just go get that and forget everything else. No, I'm just kidding. We came this far, you're not gonna forget anything else. Okay. So up to this point, we've really focused on the left lobe of the magical customer journey. We've talked about how to build awareness through our marketing and awareness and consideration through our marketing, how to build conversion through our sales process. But now on the right side, this is really what happens. To the left is they're a lead, they're a prospect. To the right, they're now a customer. They're now potentially a raving fan if we do everything right. So what I want to focus on is this little framework down here called the lifetime value generator. And it's a really powerful way of understanding when and how you deliver value to a customer that gets them to want to advocate for you, how to get good positive reviews, positive testimonials, positive referrals, right? And then how to get them to ascend so that we can increase their lifetime value. And it starts by understanding that your customer, their journey with you as a customer starts here at the point of sale. They buy the thing from you. And what occurs next is critical. Because for most people, you buy a thing, and the time that elapses between when you buy the thing and when you get the thing, a sneaky little thing called buyer's remorse props up, right? You're starting to think, well, I haven't gotten any of the benefits. I haven't gotten the vacation associated with this thing that I bought. I'm starting to feel guilty because the money's gone and I have nothing to show for it, right? We want to make sure that we decrease that time that they spend there potentially feeling buyer's remorse to as short a time period as possible. So this first dot here is what we call TTFV, time till first value. This is not the thing in which they bought the product for, right? If I bought your weight loss program, I have not received the weight loss yet. This is me trying to deliver a form of value that precedes the expected value. And so what that could be is it could just be a confirmation letter. It could be a box that you receive in the mail that says, congratulations for committing to your weight loss journey. Here's a shirt, here's a hat, here's a journal, here's everything that you need to take your health to the next level. Now imagine I buy a $10,000 health program from you, and the very next day I get a box in the mail. I haven't gotten any of the benefits. I haven't lost weight yet, but am I feeling positive towards you? Am I starting to feel like maybe this was a good decision? Well, I'm feeling better than if a whole week went by before our first onboarding call. And during that whole week before we do our onboarding call, and you can start to evaluate my health metrics and see, put together my personalized game plan, you might be delivering a ton of value on that first call. But during that week that stretches between when I gave you my money and when I start receiving value, I'm going to have doubts. And first impressions matter. And you might be able to deliver an incredible amount of value on that onboarding call 1 week later, but I will still have had a whole week with nothing going on. And for a lot of people, that's where a lot of seeds of dissent and doubt start to creep in. So we want to be really conscious of when are we delivering first value to a customer, and it should always be as instantaneously and quick as possible after they purchase. So when you buy from Amazon, they say, hey, we're gonna send this thing to you same day. Huzzah, that's great. But before it even gets to you, you get an email with tracking information. That's a form of first value because now you're like, oh, this wasn't a bad idea. I didn't just give my money to a stranger and now I'm wondering if the product is gonna appear. I got a tracking number. I can see it coming towards me, right? And so everything that we can do to help a customer realize that they made a really good purchase and not to get inside their own head, that's gonna help you. Now, the next point after they've purchased, after we've delivered their first value, is not in most cases time until expected value. That is down here. Time until expected value. Expected value is the reason I bought your program, the reason I bought your product, right? If your product was sold to me that I'm gonna lose 15 pounds in the next 60 days, then you might send me a box tomorrow But I'm not going to have an expectation that next week I'm going to have lost the pounds, right? That's going to be 60 days from now. So there's inherently a 60-day window with that particular product between when I pay and when I get the result, when I get the vacation. That's a long time. That's a long time. And for many people, it's too long for them to be able to bear that. So what we need to do is we need to introduce TTRV. That is time until recurring value. So if they buy from us and then the next day they get a package from us that says, congratulations, you made a good decision. Here's a shirt, here's a hat, here's a journal to track your nutrition, track your weightlifting. Huzzah. Now, recurring value could be a phone call every week with a coach saying, hey, are we on track? Are we moving towards our goal? It could be a progress picture, right? There's all sorts of ways that we can create recurring value, but this is important, especially within a service business. Now, imagine for a second that you are a video editing agency, right? A lot of times what people will do is they're really good at videography. So young guys will go out there with their cameras, they'll go to a business and they'll be like, hey, I'm gonna make you all these short form videos. We're gonna come in, we're gonna record with you, and then we're gonna make all these videos for you. Now, if 3 weeks is the expected time frame between when you do the recording and when the videos are available, that's not unrealistic. However, if you don't tell me that and you just disappear for 3 weeks, how does that make me feel? It starts to make me feel like, am I actually gonna get something? Where is that thing, right? Now, if the videographer instead said, hey, it's gonna take 3 weeks, they set the expectation, maybe they even gave you a sheet of paper that says, here's the roadmap, that's a form of value, right? To be able to see and understand what am I getting into with this product. And then every week or every day, whatever the cadence that you wanna assume, I reach out and I say, here's what we've done so far. Here's the progress report. A progress report is also a form of recurring value, right? And so it's understanding what are all these touch points and ways that we can deliver value to our customer that precede the expected value, so that when they finally get the reward, when they finally get the videos edited, when they finally lose the 15 pounds at the end of the 60 days, it's not just a one-time huzzah, it was 60 days of victory. Because I don't know about you, but I've had plenty of instances where I bought something, I forgot I bought it, and it showed up at my doorstep 60 days later, and I was like, oh, I don't even want that anymore. I didn't care about that, right? Or I worked with somebody who was doing the work, they disappeared for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden the work, they came back out of the woodworks, and they're like, here's the thing, here's the finished product. And I was like, it's been 3 weeks, you disappeared on me. Like, this product is great, but my expectations are so low now. I'm so pissed because you just disappeared. I had no idea where you were and where we were at with this anymore, right? So these things, the time till first value, time to recurring value, preceding the time until expected value is what sets the stage for receiving that vacation, that benefit, that feature that they wanted, right? Now, if you want to get them to become an advocate and to ascend, this is largely where that work takes place. The experience that they have preceding the expected value is where your raving fans come in. Because your product is probably just as good as anybody else's product. The way that you get somebody to lose 15 pounds in 60 days is no different than the way that this guy over here. It's nutrition and it's exercise, right? It's everything else before that that differentiates. Now, to ascend somebody, it's critical that they leave feeling like they got more than they paid for. And so that is time till surplus value. And the way to think about this is it is very easy to sell somebody the next thing if when they bought the first thing, they're like, that was a no-brainer. I got way more than I expected, right? And so if down here, the expected value was, I'm gonna help you lose 15 pounds in 60 days, and instead, after 90 days, after 60 days, I actually said I'm gonna stay on for another 30 days. I'm gonna help you, do the Booty Blaster program, right? And you're like, I didn't even know that was a thing, right? This is called a bonus. It's called a bonus. We call it surplus value here because it's a way of conceptualizing that if you can deliver more value in excess of the customer's expectation, it is the easiest damn thing in the world to ascend them because they are a raving fan that knows they get more out of you than they give you. And that at the end of the day is like the best way to grow a business is to give more than you take. So That is the lifetime value generator. All the frameworks, with the exception of the manifestation machine, have been focused on the business side, right? The manifestation machine, if you go back to the very beginning, if you remember, that was about becoming the 10.0 version of yourself, turning you into the most badass entrepreneur that you can be, because you are the biggest constraint inside your business. It'll never grow beyond your capacity, your skills, your resources, your network. The business won't grow beyond you. And so it's only fitting that down here we end in the same way that we began. Beginning, we talked about you, and now we're coming back to you. Because how you manage yourself, how you manage the flows of your energy is going to be the highest lever that you have to pull within your business. You are probably the highest paid individual inside your business. And it might just be you at the moment, so you're both the highest and lowest paid. Maybe you're not even making money yet, so like that's a terrible deal. Let's figure out how to solve that, right? It all comes down to this framework that I call time management. Now, one of the big complaints that I have with a lot of like productivity gurus and just general advice out there is people talk about how time is your most valuable asset, and it's not. Time is this meaningless concept. It's this abstract thing that has no basis in an objective reality. Your perception of time is different than my perception of time. And more importantly, nobody's paying you for your time. When people say time is money, it's bullshit, because like if that was true, you could just show up and they would pay you money, right? But you don't. It's what you do with your time that has value. And so your value is a reflection of what you do with your energy, where you deploy it, and what activities you execute with your time. So time management is an acronym. Time stands for, number one, the first thing that we're going to do to make sure that we are optimizing our time or our energy is time blocking. Time blocking. That is actually sitting down in the morning before your day begins and mapping out what does it look like to win the day. You'd be surprised how many people go through life having no clue what it looks like to win the day. And as a result, they get to the end of their day and they default to feeling like they lost. Because the to-do list, it never gets smaller. You never actually finish it, right? For every activity you check off of it, 3 more prop up in its place. It's like a hydra. And so you get to the end of the day quite often with more to-dos on the list than you started the day with, which makes you feel like you lost. But if you can start the day by actually just mapping out and blocking out what you're gonna do and when, and defining the rules by which you're gonna play that day, you can end each day with the feeling of victory, even if that was only because you checked off this one meaningful box. You're like, today I just need to get this one thing done. I have all these other to-dos, but if I can get that one thing done, it's gonna be a win. And you do that by blocking out the calendar beforehand. You put things on the calendar in such a way that if everything was to go to plan, it would be a fantastic day. Now, obviously, things get in the way, especially as an entrepreneur, like you're chief fire putter outer. A lot of things go wrong. And so you have to build in a little bit of margin into your calendar to be able to absorb the vicissitudes of fate. As things will inevitably try to get inside of your way, your team will come to you, make their problems your problems. And so you have to have a little bit of flexibility there. But by simply doing the exercise of sitting down and saying, this is what my perfect day is going to look like, this is what I'm going to do and when, and then guarding that calendar, well, that is how you ultimately own your schedule. Because either you own your schedule or your schedule owns you. There's no third option here. And left to its own, the world will do everything in its power to own your time. So time blocking is step 1. Step 2 is, it's not about how much you get done. Like, productivity is not about how much you get done. Effectiveness is about what you get done. And so we want to be looking at all of the things that we spend our time and our energy and our mental bandwidth on through 3 lenses. First is impact. Impact. You want to look at the activities that are on your calendar right now and ask yourself, how impactful is that activity? Am I spending a disordinate amount of time on things that don't really matter? I was about to go into another framework. If you guys want all the different frameworks, again, just go sign up for the newsletter. If you're an entrepreneur doing at least 10,000 a month and you want help implementing these into your business, I'd love to see if it'd be a good fit. Go to beyondtheapex.com. Anyway, look at your calendar and look at each one of the activities and rank it on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being not impactful, that's like you're your emails or taking the dog for a walk. 5 would be like, damn, that thing made me money, right? Like that was very impactful. Map everything out. So if over here, this is your Monday, let's say, we've time blocked, right? Here we have these different activities. For impact, maybe this activity up here was a 3, this one was a 2, and this one was a 9. When you look at your time and how you're spending it at the end of each week, you should be having a disproportionate amount of time spent on these 9s, these high activities, right? I think I said scale of 1 to 5. I went with a 9. I don't know. I'm not good with being consistent with my numbers here. You want to get rid of the things that are low impact. Outsource those things. That's bringing on an administrative assistant, that's bringing other people onto the team and outsourcing those. Maybe you spend all this time cooking and cleaning and doing laundry. Maybe the higher impact thing would be to hire somebody out to do those things for you, right? So that's the first lens that we're going to look at is impact. How impactful are the activities that I'm doing? As the founder, you should be spending all of your time on high impact activities. Second is money. You want to look at these activities through the lens of how much money are they making you. So what I like to do is every month just go back through and put dollar signs next to things. You know, $1 sign is that was not very valuable. $2 signs is like mediocre. $3 signs is that was very, very valuable. By seeing these things and going through this mental exercise of seeing where you're spending your time and how valuable it actually is, how much money it makes you inside the business, you start to see very quickly why your business isn't growing. If you're spending all of your time doing meaningless $1 sign activities, is it no surprise then that your business is not as profitable as you'd like? Spend more time doing the 2-hour revenue playbook, which is by definition a $3 sign activity, you're gonna start making more money, okay? Third lens is energy. And this is a really important one because, again, going all the way back to the beginning, we talked about how it's not about taking massive action. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. So your ability to show up consistently every single day and put in the work is going to serve you far better than showing up once a week and putting in a massive amount of effort. But you can only do that, you can only sustain that if you're doing activities that give you energy and you're not just doing activities that suck your energy. So you want to look at these activities and you want to go red, yellow, green and highlight them. Red is an activity that sucks your energy. Yellow leaves you feeling neutral. Green leaves you feeling energized and feels on top of the world. What you will start to notice is as you do these 3 things, you put a 1 to 5 for impact, you put dollar signs next to the most valuable activities, and you start to color code based off of red, yellow, green for the activities that give you energy, you can start to recognize that green activity is also very high impact and makes me a lot of money. Maybe you should do more of that green activity, right? If it's a red activity that is low impact and low dollar, maybe you need an assistant, right? Like that's an activity that you just fundamentally shouldn't be doing. And if you want to avoid burning out and therefore be able to show up consistently over time to be able to get results, that's what it's about. The best entrepreneurs, the most successful entrepreneurs I know are fantastic at time management. They understand what's the most impactful, what's the most monetarily lucrative activity, and what is the stuff that's filling them with sparking their soul with joy and giving them energy. They do more of that stuff, they outsource everything else, and their businesses explode. So that is everything. That is about 32% of everything that I know about the game of business. If you want help, again, because like this is information and information is readily available. There's tons of people teaching all sorts of stuff, similar, dissimilar from this. I talk about this. This is all free, right? Take this and run with it. The value isn't really in the information, it's in the application. How to figure out, how do I actually do this thing? How do I deploy that within my own business? How do I execute that concept? If you want help with that, and again, you're doing over $10,000 a month, it could be a service business, it could be a product business, doesn't matter. We run a very small group coaching program for entrepreneurs just like you. We get together every single week, we work through a framework, we figure out how to bolt it onto your business so that you can get instant results. And if that sounds like something that you would like to explore, go to beyondtheapex.com and apply for the coaching program. Otherwise, just subscribe to the channel, get more videos like this, go sign up for the newsletter. Every week we'll send out another framework like this. And over time, you can't help but succeed by just drowning yourself in these concepts. You can't, once you have the lens through which to see your business more clearly, you can't help but see it more clearly. So that's gonna do it for me, guys. I am ready to take a nap. I'll see you guys in the next video.